All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Hyde. I'm a pre-med and pre-health advisor at Northeastern University. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started with our personal statement presentation. All right. So again, thank you for joining us. Today we will be discussing the personal statement for medical, dental, podiatry, optometry, PA, and veterinary applications. We'll start by going over the purpose of a personal statement, discuss the various prompts for different application services. We'll discuss some brainstorming activities, go over some examples and general pointers, and we'll leave time at the end to talk about some important resources. We'd like to begin with a little bit of a brain warm-up from a TikTok video. I would like to preface that this video is talking about a student who applied to an undergraduate institution, and this was the personal statement that they used. So it's not necessarily a type of personal statement you might share with a health professions program, but it's just a good example to get started with, to start thinking about what creative ways people can do a personal statement through. So I'm going to go ahead and start this video.
Okay, this is the SpongeBob essay that got me into USC and UCLA. If I had to estimate, I'd say I've watched every episode of SpongeBob SquarePants at least 8 times. I've watched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie more than 100 times. I speak candidly when I say SpongeBob is my hero. Hearing chuckles and seeing contorted faces when I declare this is inevitable, but nonetheless I say it with the utmost candor and confidence every time. And why shouldn't I? I've devoted 13 years of my life to the sponge. My earliest memories of watching SpongeBob are from when I was just 4 years old. Upon arriving home from pre-K, I would run into my apartment and beg my grandma to let me watch SpongeBob instead of her melodramatic Bollywood movies. Of course, she would always cave in. I'd prance around my living room and screech the lyrics of the infectious theme song at the top of my lungs as it poured out of my surround sound system. During these performances, my grandma would massage her temples. Every day, I would learn new vocabulary, new jokes, and new ways to annoy SpongeBob's grumpy neighbor Squidward. It's no secret that the setup of the SpongeBob SquarePants show is bizarre. A sea sponge, a starfish, and an octopus ironically named Squidward are neighbors, a crab has a whale daughter, and the antagonist of the show is an evil genius zooplankton with a computer wife. One could choose to criticize the ridiculousness of the show or simply indulge in the absurdity of it all. I indulged. In one episode, SpongeBob and Squidward drive a rock to deliver pizza to a customer. In another episode, SpongeBob draws a picture of himself that comes to life. There were no rules in the episodes. The opportunities were limitless. It showed me that my imagination could run wild, and more importantly, being able to access my imagination was a meaningful skill. Seeing these zany scenarios planted a seed in my brain at a crucial development stage, which in turn made me a more creative person. Being myself has never been an issue for me, but believing in myself was, especially in my first year of high school. I was stuck in a rut. I felt mediocre all the time. Whenever I thought of any scenario, my mind made a list of every little thing that could go wrong, even if it was completely irrational. I thought back to the first episode of SpongeBob in which a swarm of anchovies came to feast at the Krusty Krab, where SpongeBob was seeking employment as a fry cook. He keeps calm amongst all of the anchovy chaos despite it being his first day and efficiently serves Krabby Patties. I questioned when I had become so doubtful. If SpongeBob could serve 1,000 anchovies on his first day, I could definitely try to gain some lost confidence back. SpongeBob has been a driving force in shaping the person I am today in more ways than I thought. It wasn't until I sat down to write this essay that I realized SpongeBob may be responsible for my passion for acting. After all, being an actor requires confidence and imagination, 2 things of mine that were greatly developed through watching SpongeBob. I look forward to further developing these things throughout college and the rest of my life. In the words of Mr. SquarePants himself, I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause this and stop sharing my screen for a moment. And I encourage you all to really pause and reflect about that personal statement. Think about, what stood out to you, what was interesting to you. I'm going to share my screen here. I have some more reflective questions to think about. Go through this. So, what stood out to you about this student's essay? Did anything surprise you? Did the essay have a clear theme or message? Do you feel like you understand who this person is on a deeper level? Was it creative? So definitely I encourage you to pause and reflect, about what stood out to you about this essay. So what is the purpose of a personal statement? The personal statement can do a lot of things, but these are the primary functions. It's intended for the reader to learn more about the applicant's background and their personal and professional goals. It's important because reading this will help the reader understand the motivation and goals that this student has in pursuing a future in healthcare. It also allows for creative expression that's absent elsewhere on the application. The rest of your application tends to be very, matter of fact and factual. I always think that, the personal statement is a really good way to conceptualize and sort of bring your story to life. And you can do that here creatively where you can't always in other portions of the application. It can bring focus to one or more impactful moments that might have impacted your journey to a health profession. And it can tie in together various pieces of your pre-health journey into one coherent narrative. So the prompts, each health profession program usually has its own application service. And within those application services, there are different character counts and prompts for each of the health professions. So we will go over those in the next few slides. So the prompts and character limits by application, if you are applying to AMCAS for allopathic medical colleges, which would be MD granting institutions, the prompt would be use the space provided to explain why you want to go to medical school in 5,300 characters. If you are applying to MD, PhD programs through AMCAS, you are required to answer 2 additional essay questions. The first is the MD, PhD essay, which asks you to state your reasons for pursuing the combined program. Usually this is where students will go into a little bit more detail about, why they want to further their education with not only an MD degree, but an MD, PhD degree. Typically that is 3,000 characters. Students will also be required to write a significant research experience essay in which they'll write an essay that describes their significant research experiences, and they'll provide their research supervisor's name, affiliation, duration of the experience, the nature of the problem studied, and their contributions to the research effort. That's a longer essay. It is about 10,000 characters long. If you're applying to any osteopathic medical colleges through ACOMAS, their statement prompt is in the space provided. Please write a brief statement expressing your motivation or desire to become a DO. Keep your statement general as the same essay will be sent to all schools you will apply to. This is about 5,300 characters as well, similar to AMCAS. Typically, students will send the same personal statement to both MD and DO programs if they are applying to both. If you're applying to dentistry programs, I just lost my slides there for a second. If you're applying to dentistry programs, your personal statement is a 1-page essay that gives the dental schools a clear picture of who you are and, more importantly, why you want to study a career in dentistry. Okay. CASPA, that would be if you're applying to any PA programs. This is where you would write a brief statement expressing why you are interested in being a PA, 5,000 characters. Optometry, describe what inspires your decision for becoming an optometrist, including your preparation for training in this profession and your aptitude and motivation, as well as the basis for your interest in optometry and your future career goals, 4,500 characters. Veterinary programs will ask for a personal statement that is 1 page that gives the admissions committee a clear picture of who you are and, more importantly, why you want to pursue a career in veterinary medicine, 3,000 characters. And podiatry will ask for a brief statement expressing why you're interested in becoming a doctor of podiatric medicine, providing information about your development for a career in podiatric medicine, 4,500 characters. If you are applying to any universities or medical schools in Texas, whether that be MD/DO, dental, or veterinary programs, you will apply through the TMDSAS application service. If you're applying to MD and DO programs, this essay would ask you to explain your motivation in seeking a career in medicine, including the value of your experiences that prepare you to be a physician, 5,000 characters. Their dental programs will ask you to explain your motivation to seek a career in dentistry, also discussing your philosophy of the dental profession, and indicating your goals relevant to the profession. And finally, veterinary, they'll ask you to write a personal essay that describes the opportunities and challenges, veterinary related and non-veterinary related, that you've experienced and how those have helped prepare you to enter the veterinary profession. Again, 5,000 characters. Each of these prompts, are very similar. I think they're asking, a lot of the same questions, but they are individualized per application service. So it's important to review, the prompt of the application service you will be using before you write your essay. So now we're going to switch gears and talk a bit more about brainstorming and ways to brainstorm writing your personal statement. So we are going to do a short activity. I would like you to take out a piece of paper or open the notes document on your phone or computer and get prepared to do a little bit of writing. So if you are watching the recording, I do encourage you to pause here and identify 3 core values that are important to you. You can use this list for inspiration, or you can write 3 of your own. And a value is defined as a person's principles or standards of behavior, or one's judgment of what is important in life. So pause the video, find 3 core values that are important to you, and when you've got them, feel free to move on. Now that you've found your 3 core values, I want you to reflect and journal about those using the piece of paper you've taken out. How did you choose these values? Why are these values important to you? How will you use these values to help you achieve your goal, or how do you use them in daily practice? And can you think of examples in your life that personify these values? So we'll start here, and I want you to pause, and once you've got this reflection written down, move on to the next slide. Once you've done that, I encourage you to continue to reflect. As you review your brainstorming, think about what are the most common themes or connections you noticed in what you wrote. Do you believe that one of these themes represents your goals or motivations for your future profession? And will a statement focusing on this theme show an admissions committee who you are and why you're choosing to pursue this health career field? And how have you proven the commitment to that? This is something that is going to be ongoing throughout the application cycle. So I do encourage you to keep a journal, close by. I keep a notepad by my bedside or, on my desk. So that way, anytime thoughts do pop into your head about, different things you may want to touch on in your personal statement, you've got that all down in one place. Well, I also encourage you to talk through your journey with friends, families, and mentors who know you well so that you can see yourself maybe from a different point of view. People who are close to us often can see strengths and things in ourselves that we don't see. And I also encourage you to review the AAMC core competencies, which are linked here, to help you connect your experiences that you've had to your profession of choice. So we're going to move on to some examples and pointers. Some things you want to include or keep in mind when you are writing your personal statement. Some people like to explain a defining moment that helped them steer towards a career in their chosen field. You can consider using that moment as the focal point of your essay. Some people like to do this, other people don't. You don't have to have this big lightning bolt moment to start off your personal statement, but if you do have a defining moment in your life, that can be a great place to start. Be creative when you're writing your personal statement. This is your place to be colorful, positive, and imaginative when discussing why you're a good candidate for these programs. Ask yourself, in a pile of hundreds, if not thousands of applications, would you enjoy reading your personal statement? Be sure to convey your passion for your chosen health career field in there. Be yourself. Don't use jargon, cliches, or big phrases that you wouldn't use in daily conversation. Admissions committees can read right through that. Remember that the programs you're applying to, they want to learn about the real you. What makes you tick, what your interests are. No need to pull out the thesaurus and pull out words that you wouldn't normally use. Be original and thoughtful. Discuss how you would contribute to the profession and patient or animal care, all of which will help you stand out from other applicants. It's easy when you're applying to medical school or dental school or whatever professional program and say, I want to go to this program because this program can teach me, XYZ. But it's more impactful when you can say, okay, look at all of these experiences I've had, all of these things I've done, these perspectives that I have, and how can I use that to be a positive contributor to this particular medical school or dental school, podiatry school, whatever it may be. And so it's really important to be thoughtful and again, discuss how can you contribute to the profession. Is there something that you want programs to know about you that hasn't been disclosed in other parts of your application? Was there a big, something that happened in your life that you want to share about? This would be an appropriate spot. Make sure to talk about any unique hardships, challenges, or obstacles that have influenced your educational pursuits. Sometimes there are things in life that cause you to take a couple of years off from, your educational path, or maybe there's something that really impacted you. You want to provide context to that in your personal statement to help sort of explain and allow schools to look at your application in a bit more of a holistic manner. And then, comments or context on significant fluctuations in your academic record that are not explained elsewhere in your application are appropriate in some ways. Example being if you had to take, some time off. There's a lot of different ways that you can write a personal statement. There's a lot of different approaches that you can take to writing. A couple of common ones are the journey or the deep dive, and we'll talk about each of those. So the journey would begin with a hook, maybe one of those experiences that you want to focus on, and then it would switch to maybe a slower buildup of several different experiences you've had. Maybe talking about that one impactful moment that you had, and then just tying in how different experiences or different things, maybe co-ops you've done, have sort of contributed to that general interest of yours. It usually includes 2 or 3 anecdotes that follow a singular theme. And the conclusion would really sort of solidify, why this is the path that you want to go on that would help achieve your goals, and what is the ideology on your chosen profession? Why do you see that as its role in the world, and how do you plan on contributing? And it can finally, sort of state the theme again. Similarly, but also differently, the deep dive totally focuses on one anecdote. You're still adhering to the central theme, but it breaks down, event by event and explains the impact, outcomes, lessons learned, things of that nature. The conclusion pulls anecdote into the present. So, how did this experience help you arrive at where you are today? How has it solidified your motivation to enter your chosen profession? And it gives final mention of the theme. Some things to avoid in a medical school or a PA school, whatever, a health profession program personal statement. Universally there are some things that you want to try to avoid, and that's generic or interchangeable or highly applicable examples. You want to stand out. You want to be unique. So it's easy to say, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a vet because I want to help people, or I want to help animals. But there's a lot of professions where you can help people, but why be a doctor? Why be a PA? Why be a dentist? Be specific. Avoid using too many quotes to where your own voice is kind of drowned out. You want these different health professions programs to get to know you and who you are, and if you use too many quotes, that can be hard to decide. Don't focus on the negative. You definitely don't want to complain about a job or a supervisor. Sometimes people say, I want to be a doctor because I had a negative experience with a doctor in the past. And, it's easy to talk about what went wrong, but instead talk about what you would do right as a physician. Also, this is a very common mistake. Don't attempt to cover your entire resume in your personal statement. Some people like to write a personal statement that is simply regurgitating the application, and that's not helpful either. If they wanted to read that, they would read your application. Leave items open to misinterpretation. That's something we want to avoid. You don't want to be generally unclear. We want to be, focused, articulate, and not really be ambiguous in the application or in the essay itself. Do not boast or label yourself in over-laudatory terms. You don't want to make it sound like you are prideful or boastful or bragging. You want to, come off as humble and with pure intentions. Don't forget to address the main question at hand. Remember, we looked through all of those prompts earlier. Make sure at the end of your essay, it clearly answers the question that you were asked. And also, please keep in mind that applications do not allow for varied formatting, spacing, indenting. So make sure you're happy with how your application and how your personal statement looks in plain text. We have an example here. You can pause and read the whole thing, but the writer here does tend to do a little bit of boasting, potentially forgetting to address the main question at hand. These are things that we want to try to avoid. Sensitive information is oftentimes a question of what to include in the personal statement. Personal statement can be appropriate to include if it was an important part of your journey to your chosen profession, or if you speak about the growth that has taken place because of it. You can also want to mention it if it's going to impact your future practice as a healthcare professional. But we do caution you to, proceed with caution when sharing sensitive information because once you send this personal statement out there, it will be read by many different people on various different admissions committees. And so you want to think about how will this be perceived by various readers of all different, backgrounds and walks of life. And so, we want to be mindful of, what we're sharing and make sure that whatever you're sharing, you're comfortable with people knowing and people asking you about. Some reminders or important things to include. This is a personal essay, so be personal. This is your place to be vulnerable and, to share things that are important to you. Aim for an organized essay that flows from paragraph to paragraph. Use transitions between your paragraphs. We kind of go back to those basic, reading and writing grammar rules. And make sure that your essay is anchored in a central theme to make it easy to follow. Again, ensuring the theme is easy to follow, introduce items chronologically when possible, try to avoid using acronyms or, overly generalizing things, be specific. Use direct active language to help the reader see things through your own eyes instead of making them feel like they're sort of watching from the outside. You want to really give them a firsthand account. Ensure that there are no grammatical errors. Try not to rely on, spelling and grammar check that's in Microsoft or Word or, in Google. You want to make sure that it's free from errors. And make sure you are the main character. Sometimes people like to tell stories about, something that happened to a friend or a family member that really impacted themselves. And that's fine, but make sure you are the central character of your personal statement. And again, there's a positive example here that I encourage you to pause and read and sort of pull out the positive, aspects of this example. So what are your next steps? Jump in and start early. Even if you are focusing the majority of your time on the MCAT, make sure you spend some time brainstorming your personal statement. This sometimes gets left to the end and can be a stressful part of the application. So, start brainstorming early and it'll make the application, writing and the personal statement writing much easier. Be accountable, schedule some time into your schedule to work on your personal statement, to set goals for when you're going to finish brainstorming, when you're going to have your first draft, etc. Again, scan for errors. Don't rely on spell check. You want to reread your statement to make sure there are no mistakes that you may have missed. And lastly, make sure you speak up, read the personal statement out loud. Sometimes when you do that, you can catch smaller errors that you missed before or identify if there are any awkward areas. So now we're going to move into talking about some additional resources for writing your personal statement. Seeking feedback is really important for every step of the writing process. Be open to criticism, and review is a sign of strength and will lead to a more solid statement. You can ask for feedback from people who know you personally to make sure that the personal statement sounds like you and sounds like your voice. People who know you professionally, does it help them learn more about you and your strengths? And ask your pre-health advisor for feedback on how this might be interpreted by an admissions committee. You can utilize the Writing Center on campus. It is open to all students and alumni, and we've got some additional links here, which you can click on in the slides for some additional tips. Some final notes. Try not to worry about what your peers on the internet are doing or writing about. It may have no relevance to your journey, and everyone's going to write a slightly different personal statement. You'll know when your personal statement is done when you feel confident that it represents your motivation, your goals, and it sounds like you. There's no one way to be creative or to craft a personal statement. Be creative, but not outlandish. If you have additional questions about your personal statement, we encourage you to reach out to your health advisor, your pre-health advisor at Northeastern. You can find all of our information on our website at northeastern.edu/prehealth. But thank you everyone for joining us today. I am going to stop sharing my screen and just thank you again for joining us and best of luck writing.